Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future. These are my stories of choice, change and action, along with the phenomenal guests I have on here. From a really young age, I've always desired to create a change in the world. The planet has been a constant inspiration to me, and Access Consciousness has shown me the tools to know that anything is possible. And I keep choosing. What are you going to choose? Welcome everybody to Choice, Change and Action podcast, and we are live today at Joy Business Facilitator Training in Marseille, France. We have a whole bunch of Joy Business Facilitators online, and then we have a whole lot of in the room. And actually, we just changed. This is the fourth day of training, so this is the last day of training of Joy Business Facilitator Training, and we renamed ourselves a pack. The pack of JCFs, a pack of Joy Business Facilitators. And as I was just in the lift, I thought, what is the definition of a pack, you know? And I started laughing in there because one of the definitions of a pack is a group of wild animals living and hunting together. And I was like, yeah, that works. We're a pack of JCFs. So we are a pack of JCFs, and I have one Joy Business Facilitator with me today, Miss Heather Nichols, who you've been a Joy Business Facilitator from the very beginning, right?
Yes.
You were like one of the first brave souls to become a JCF.
I begged you for years to create JCF.
That was a whole other different thing besides begging, no, I'm kidding. But wanting to become, I was facilitating Joy Business classes for quite some time, and there wasn't the request for people to be JCFs. And yeah, you were definitely one of the ones that were just like, hey, can I please do this as well? So the first Joy Business Facilitator training we had in Australia, there was like 12 people, I think. And yeah, you were one of them. And thank you for still sticking it out and being here. You are
my total pleasure.
You are also, you've an Access Consciousness facilitator, obviously, but you're also a facilitator of X-Men. And what I wanted to do a podcast on today is being an X-Man in business. Now, first of all, I'd like to ask you, can you give these guys a definition? I mean, I'm sure we all know, eye candy, Hugh Jackman, right? So you've all seen X-Men movies. Can you give people a definition when we say X-Men? What are we talking about?
Yeah. Well, the thing about X-Men is that it's inherently... It's the most undefinable. It's a very undefinable conversation, So, my two favorite definitions of X-Men that I've ever heard came from Gary Douglas when someone said, "What is an X-Men?" and he said, "You." And then the other time was when he said, "Humanoid extreme." And for those listening to the podcast. Humanoids, we talk about humanoids in Access Consciousness, just from this invitation to recognize that you might actually function differently than the rest of the world, or than a lot of the rest of the world, and to give people a sense of being different and knowing that like your brain doesn't maybe work the way that everybody else's brain works, and you might have a lot more awareness than other people have. And when the rules and regulations of this reality don't make sense to you, you might be a humanoid. And X-Men and humanoids are sort of like, I see it as a spectrum. And so I love this idea of humanoid extreme because it's really this, it's just such an invitation to start to see yourself as the difference that you be.
And I think that's like a really key element is the difference that you be. And for the two things I want to bring up is one of my favorite parts in one of the X-Men movies. So if you haven't seen the X-Men movies and you're living under a rock, you might want to watch them and have a look at all of the capacities that they have, because that's the thing. It's a capacity that is maybe nobody else has, or you are so extreme at something. And there was one scene in one of the movies where the parents are basically saying, can you help him get rid of this? Yeah. And they go, no, it's not about getting rid of it. It's about learning how to use it and be with it. And in Australia alone, in Western Australia, there is 1 in 3 kids is diagnosed with ADHD and given Ritalin. And it's just like, it's almost like this, like give them Ritalin so that they can shut them up. And the stuff that's come out about Ritalin is horrifying, and yet they're still doing it. And for me, it's not about how do we quieten them down, people who have these extreme capacities. It's like, how do we be with that? What can we gain from that? It's like, dude, it's like, what capacity is that? And what do you know about this? Like the difference that you be. Love that. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we talk about in X-Men is being like the evolution of the species, and not from a better than or less than point of view, but really just from the sense of like, evolution is something that's always occurring, and it's not something that stopped when humans got here, which a lot of people think is the case. But so it's like if we're evolving as creatures of awareness and having these capacities, it like when someone has a capacity that's different than the norm, it's going to be seen as weird or strange or wrong. And in this world, it's, a lot of our capacities are seen as wrong. We make them wrong. And when it comes to business and creation, then we actually, like you handicap yourself dynamically as a creator when you're not willing to get curious about those capacities and start to look at all the things that you thought were wrong about you and go, how could I use this to my advantage?
Well, there's one, so the people that I work with, and for you guys listening here, we call it a conglomeration of idiots. It's a koi, it's not a team, it's a conglomeration of idiots. We're all sort of, heading in the same direction. And all the people I work with are extremely different. And one of them who I've worked with for a really long time is like X-Men, off the charts. But what I've seen over the years, what she's chosen is either like just shutting up and then stepping back and then just being really quiet. And she's brilliant. She's got these amazing ideas. And when you actually go, hey, and tap her on the shoulder or ask her a question, she just goes, and she's got this plethora of ideas and things that you could go into. And I've worked with her over the period of time for so many years about being that ideas person. Even if somebody doesn't get it, it's fine. It's like, give your ideas and let them land in their world. They might get it today, tomorrow, next week, next month. It doesn't mean you're wrong, and it's not about shutting up. And recently, the last conversation I had with her, she said to me, nobody asks. And I went, yeah, but they don't know what to ask you. Do you get how intimidating it is by how quiet you be? She was like, what? I'm intimidating? And I was like, yeah, people don't know to go and ask. So what if you went, hey, can we have 10 minutes and let's start talking about this idea that you had? I might have something that could add to it. So in business, I think if you have those capacities, or if you recognize the other way that you're working with people that function like that, just go, hey, let's have a coffee, let's chat on Zoom or something like that. If you've got 10 minutes, I'd love to get a download of how you see this so that we can have this expansion of possibilities, not the finite, possibilities. Yeah. So what else have you seen with X-Men in business, and what other tools would you give out for people on either end, I mean, I think we all have a bit of X-Men in us. I think we're all a bit OCD, ADHD, autistic, etc. So everywhere that you haven't been willing to acknowledge that you are just a little bit OCD, autistic, all of that and more, we destroy and uncreate it. All right, and on green bad, pock and pot all nine, shorts, boys, perverts and beyonds. Because if you're willing to receive it, then you'll acknowledge when you are. And if you're one of those people who, has so many things going on in your head and then trying to get that to go into words, you're just like, it's like, it's probably like a level of autism and OCD, etc. So.
Well, one of the things that has helped me so much is to have allowance for myself, to really not judge me. And that's one of the things that I love about the X-Men classes is like you get to just watch people, you get to watch their judgment of themselves and how they function just completely melt. It's just exquisite. Because that's when you really can get into creation and start to show up in a different way. And so for me, it's like having an awareness of how does my brain work? What am I actually aware of? Because the X-Men universe is so energetic. And if you have allowance of you get to have access to that huge universe of energetic awareness that you have.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah.
To someone listening here or watching, because we're on YouTube, if you're listening to this, don't forget to flip over to YouTube and you can see myself and Heather Nichols on stage live in Marseille. So can you expand on that, how it's so energetic? What is that?
I mean, I think, like you said, you might be aware of a million different things, and that is a very common thing for X-Men. But you may not even know that you're aware of a million things. So you might be, like, for me, it's like, I might get really agitated, or I might get really grumpy, or, something like that. But then I go, okay, wait a minute. No, one of the basic tools of access consciousness, the question, what is this? Is such an amazing question to be asking, because I'll just go, okay, hold on. What is this? Like, I'm not going to define this as grumpy or agitated. I'm going to go, what is this? And what am I aware of? Which is like I would say as an X-Men, have that question in your pocket at all times. What am I aware of here? And then you can start to perceive all of the energies, and there may be things that kind of just ping or stand out or tug on you more than others. And they're so subtle, but one of the things I've learned with the amazing combination of Joy Business and X-Men over the years is to actually create my business from that. And these tiniest little pings, these little niggles, these little things that show up.
The whispers.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you can stay out of the definition, like stay out of defining your experience and yourself, and stay in the question of like just the curiosity of everything.
And not making anything wrong, I would say as well. And what if you started asking every single person you work with, what are you aware of? Like, pick a topic, It's like, okay, so the schedule this year or events, it's like, what are you aware of with that? Like I just asked before in this training, it's like, should we do 3 or 4 days next year for Joy Business Facilitator training? Because I'm like, everyone is so fried here, like deep fried, someone explained it. And I'm like, it's true. So, and then I went upstairs when we had a break and I went, we're doing 3 days. It's way too frying. People are just so fried. But you're aware of it. There's an energy you're aware of. And if you're not making it linear and you're not making something right or wrong, then you can choose, as you say, like from the energetics of it and what you're aware of. So what if you took your business out of the linearity and into the space of possibilities from the energetic whispers of the universe and the people you surround yourself by, and that's how you created your business. And everything that is, we destroy and uncreate it. All right, wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all 9 shorts, boys, provids and beyonds. And if you have not heard of the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement, you obviously haven't been listening to my podcast, but you can go to theclearingstatement.com, and myself and Dr. Dane here give I think quite a humorous description of the clearing statement. So what else would you say is, what's another tool that you would say maybe dealing with clients or dealing with staff?
Let's see, gosh.
Into the microphone.
Let's talk about dealing with staff, because there was a meeting that some of us were on last night, and it was just kind of like looking at some different possibilities and creating it a different way. And I really got this sense of like, and this happens a lot for me, where it's like, I was like, the meeting kind of happened in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And that is very much an X-Men.
Yeah.
X-Men are so fast because energy doesn't take time. There's no solidity to it. It doesn't require and so it was kind of like we came together and we all went, hi, to the class and the creation and to each other. And for me, I was like, oh, cool. Like everything just got greater.
Yeah.
And for me, one of my big business tools that I use is acknowledgement, actually. Yeah. When you acknowledge something energetically, you look at it, you actually add your awareness to it. You are far more potent than you'd realize. We all are. And so to acknowledge even just looking at something, saying hi to a creation, which is this weird thing that we do in Access. We talk to creations, right? And to each other. It's like that creates a change right there that can, if you acknowledge it and go, wow, cool. It's like it can just keep going and going and going.
Yeah. So I have an example of this too, because we have a bunch of companies with Access, and what I recently just did, a tool that we have in Access is like looking at how much it costs to run your life, right? Or how much it costs to run your business. And one of the things that we talk about is write down, and I always say do it freehand first, because it's really interesting to see what you think of, what you think the cost to run the business. And if you do it freehand, you're like, okay, I've got my utilities, I've got my staff, I've got my rent, I've got blah, 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 car payments or whatever. And you work this out of how much it costs to run your life and run your business. And then what I suggest is you get a profit and loss statement of 12 months and then look at it and go, well, hang on a second. And you look at your car payments and you go, oh, it's not just, $200 a month on gas or petrol. It's I had to get new wheels. I've got my registration. I've got my insurance. And then by the time you look at all the costs over 12 months, because you're in a profit and loss statement, it's like then you go, oh, it's actually $320 that it costs for my car each month. And so you're getting really clear on how much it costs to run your business and how much it costs to run your life. So, and in that has that, a step. You can look at it line by line, your profit and loss. Do I need this, right? Now, in saying that has a sense of linearity to it, but you can take the linearity out as well. And I recently, over the last few days, I got the last 2 years of profit and loss statements of all the Access companies, and including Elugar as well, so that I can look at it. And instead of us just saying, oh, it costs this much or it costs this much, let's have a look. Has anything changed, And so I can go through it line by line, but it's not line by line by, like really, going into the structure of it. And I'd said to Gary, you know what, as soon as I asked for them to be printed and have copies of them, it was like, and as I do stuff, I always ask for the truths and the lies to show up with everything so that everything just pops up. And everything just went, and I was like, it's created more already.
Yeah. That.
Yeah.
You asking a question, being a question,
yeah,
which is a capacity that X-Men be that so many people don't realize. We have such an incredible capacity to be this space of curiosity. The moment you add that to something, it gets greater.
So all of you who are listening to this now and in the future, everywhere that you've decided that you have to do linearity with business rather than be the space of curiosity that you can with your projects, your business, your staff, your clients, your money, all of it and more, where you destroy and uncreate it. Yes. Right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine, shorts, boys, provids and beyonds. Because what are you avoiding by not choosing to acknowledge the energy that you could be choosing? And everything at that is times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine, shorts, boys, provids and beyonds. I just want to tell a quick story as well. Diva Diaz, who is an X-Men facilitator and a Access Consciousness facilitator as well, she used to live next door to me in Australia. And if we went out into our verandas, and you could yell out, like, you'd be like, Diva, she'd be like, Simone. You could walk out into the veranda and you could see each other, right? You could almost jump. We didn't. It was a little bit too far, but you could be there. And we used to call it Skype veranda, because on Skype, when sometimes, or it's anything now, it's like WhatsApp. You're WhatsApping or you're Skyping someone, but you don't go, I am going to have a shower now. I'm going to get a coffee. You just walk away, right? And so we'd have these conversations, and one of us would just walk away. We wouldn't say goodbye. We wouldn't do anything like that. And then we were like, it's so funny the way we communicate, because we knew we were done. So we'd just walk away. So we used to call it Skype veranda, our verandas. But she is very X-Man. And one of the things that I actually educated her on was completing her sentence. Because she would go, oh, Simone, da-da-da. And then she'd just, and I'd go, do you get, people don't get what you're talking about? And she'd go, but I delivered it. And I was like, yeah, but they have, like, you haven't given them a topic. You're just like giving this, I know you're laughing because we all do it.
I never do that.
Yeah. There's a lot of us who are the queen of half sentences, but I've learnt to complete your sentence when you're working with people, or say, hey, I'm going to address the project next Friday. Yeah. Because in your head you're doing it, and a lot of them get it, but they're not willing to acknowledge it. And as soon as she started using that, she went, wow, I didn't realize how many people, can I tell you, if you're listening to this, there was a lot of people laughing in here because they know they do this, okay?
Busted.
Yeah, busted, exactly. But it's not wrong. It's like you've got it. And you may talk to someone who goes, oh yeah, and then you try and complete your sentence, right? And they've already got it.
Yeah, they've moved on. They're like 5 miles down the road. Yeah.
But be willing to acknowledge, did this person receive this or did they not? Do I have to use a full sentence here or give them the topic? You know, have a look at who you're working with.
Well, and that's the very first question that actually got me to start to look at myself as an X-Men. Because I thought, we talk a lot about kids with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism. And I was like, oh, that doesn't apply to me, So, and Gary Douglas asked me years ago, have you acknowledged the difference that you be? And I was like, you talking to me? Like, what? I'm so totally normal,
Wow. Hang on 1 second.
Yeah.
How many of you listening have decided that you're totally normal and you've been lying to yourself your entire life? And is now an auspicious moment, and then are you ready to actually acknowledge you are not normal, you do not fit in, you've never fitted in, stop trying to fit in, be the difference that you are. And everything that is, times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine, shorts, boys, provids, and beyonds. At least the bodies in the room are smiling.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually, to me, it's like where the fun really begins, and the creativity. But one thing I wanted to say about what you were just saying is that when you do acknowledge the difference that you be, you also, there's this incredible gift of being able to see other people as well. Because X-Men do tend to, X-Men function from this space of oneness more naturally, even though we may not think we do. It's such a capacity. And to not see, just to see everything from that perspective. But for me, acknowledging the difference that I be, it allows me to see other people and to know what's being received, what can be received, what I do, if I do need to finish my sentence, or if I don't. Because if you're speaking to another X-Men, you might be torturing them by finishing your sentence.
Yes.
They might be like, oh my God, I know what you're going to say, just shut up! Because X-Men do tend to speak energetically too, so.
I want to thank you for being here and talking about this topic. And this may sound strange, weird, surprising, but just sitting here and talking to you about this, I'm actually having to acknowledge to the extent of how X-Man I am. And I didn't realize till now that I have sort of put it at this arm's length. And I've put you, Jenny, Diva, Saul, all these people, oh, that's what they know about, rather than actually going, what do I know about this? Yeah. So I'm going to ask all of you, what do you know about being an X-Man? Everywhere that you've decided that that's somebody else's capacity, rather than claiming, owning, and acknowledging all of your capacities, we destroy and uncreate it. Yeah. All right, and on good and bad, pock and pot, all nine, shorts, boys, provids, and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, what if every single one of you here, online, listening later, are a completely unique creature in the world, and there's no other creature like you.
I love it.
Yeah, and when you start to see yourself from that perspective, just from the question of that, not the conclusion of it, but the curiosity of it, man, it's so fun, and there's so much creative possibility there.
I love that. So I'm going to, a new tool in the morning. When you wake up in the morning, it's what if you acknowledge the unique creature you are and ask, what unique creature can I choose to be today? What uniqueness can I acknowledge today? And everything that is, times a godzillion, right, wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine, shorts, boys, provids, and beyonds. Wow, I love that. So anything else you want to add here, Heather?
Well,
I mean, I know we could talk for hours.
Yeah, we could keep going. But that question of we ask a lot in Access, what do I know that nobody else knows? Or what can I choose today that nobody else can choose? Those types of questions, with that energy, totally changes the game of that. So And maybe that's what the world is really asking for.
So where can people find you? Not your home address. I mean, like.
I know. I have no idea. No. HeatherNichols.com is my website, and accessconsciousness.com. And there's a lot of amazing X-Men facilitators, and the X-Men classes are so. Every single one that I facilitate is its own unique creature, as well as all the X-Men facilitators. So accessconsciousness.com/X-Men is a landing page on the Access website that has a bunch of resources and links to all the classes and facilitators.
And I'm going to suggest that if you're listening to this and you have children, attend one of these classes, because what if you were empowered as a kid to be everything you were being and not trying to, be normal as a kid? Then who would you be now and what would you choose? So if we could be that for our kids as well. Yeah. So accessconsciousness.com/X-Men, and also accessjoybusiness.com. You can find a Joy Business facilitator. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Choice, Change and Action podcast has its own Instagram handle now. So it's growing up. And so follow us on there. And if you use any topic that you would like me to address or talk about, I will take it into consideration, slide into my DMs on Choice, Change and Action, and we can have a look at that. And I want to thank you so much, Heather Nichols, for being here and being everything that you be.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Yay! And thank you all the JCFs for attending this podcast live. And also Choice and Contribution membership I have. You can have a look at that as well. So there's lots and lots and lots of stuff. Subscribe to this and you'll actually get all the show notes every time we release a podcast. So thanks everyone for joining us, and I'll see you next time. Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram @SimoneMilasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram @Choice, Change and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes, and lastly, have way too much fun today.